Welcome to Film Recap Zone. Today, I am going to explain an American sci-fi film called The Martian. The film garnered a total of 7 Oscars across various categories in 2016. Dear viewers, please feel free to leave your suggestions in the comment section if you would like to request a movie review. So watch and enjoy. At the outset of the film, four astronauts gather rock samples from Mars outside their spacecraft. Their colleagues inside warn them that there is a storm coming, one much worse than they had previously thought. They are advised to come inside. The crew debates whether or not they should try to wait out the storm or take off. Most want to risk it and stay, but the commander uses her authority to settle the matter. They will be leaving. While getting ready to take off, some debris thrown around by the storm damages the ship. They attempt to repair it as they struggle to solve the problem and make it back inside. Mark, one of the crew members, is hit by some debris and sent flying away from the rest. The debris damages his communication systems, and the rest of the team isn't able to get a hold of him. The storm gets progressively worse, and the crew inside warns that the ship won't be able to withstand the wind much longer, and that they need to leave soon. The commander sends her crew back inside but stays behind to try to look for Mark. She does her best but is forced to come back inside if she wants to save the rest of her team. The crew mourns the loss of their friend as they depart from Mars. The director of NASA holds a press conference letting the nation know that their mission to Mars was a success, that the team is on their way back home, but unfortunately, one of the astronauts died. Mark wakes up still on Mars, half buried in the sand, his suit signaling all kinds of warnings about his oxygen levels and blood pressure. He has been impaled by debris, opting to trim the excess material while retaining a metal rod to maintain stable air pressure within his suit. Upon returning to the base, he proceeds to surgically extract the debris from his abdomen and closes the wound with staples. In a video log, he recounts the incident, clarifying that the debris disrupted his communication systems but inadvertently sealed his suit. He expresses understanding towards his crew for presuming him deceased and acknowledges the lengthy wait for NASA's next manned mission to Mars, realizing his limited food supplies. While exploring the abandoned base, he organizes his crew's belongings and meticulously documents the remaining food rations. The protagonist realizes that he only has enough food to last him a year and that he will need to find a way to grow 3 more years' worth of food. Luckily, Mark, a botanist, takes some potatoes that the crew had brought with them to eat for Thanksgiving and decides to figure out a way to plant them. He begins by cleaning off the solar panels, bringing loads of dirt inside, spreading it around, and even going through the crew's waste to make fertilizer. Mark tills the dirt inside and plants the potatoes. However, he soon realizes that he does not have enough water to water all of the crops adequately. Consequently, he sets to work figuring out a way to produce more water. He constructs a machine that generates water through small chemical fires. After a few days, the inside walls of the garden are covered in condensation, and the plants begin to sprout. Meanwhile, back on Earth, NASA holds a funeral for Mark. Vincent talks to the director about returning to Mars and collecting Mark's crew's abandoned equipment. However, the director rejects the idea, stating that everything they do would have to be televised, and he does not want the public to see Mark's body. Vincent points out that Mark's body will not decompose on Mars and suggests framing the mission as an attempt to recover Mark's body for his family. Mindy, a satellite supervisor, receives coordinates directing her attention to Mark's location and notices movement at the base. She promptly places an emergency call with the director to inform him. They realize that this footage is evidence that Mark is still alive and contemplate what to disclose to the public. With the obligation to release the footage within 24 hours, they are concerned about the potential backlash for abandoning an astronaut. Consequently, they decide to hold a press conference to assure the public that they will do everything within their power to bring Mark back home alive from Mars. Mark studies maps at the base and determines where he needs to be to meet the next Mars mission in 4 years. The location is approximately 3,200 kilometers away, and his rover can only travel 35 kilometers at a time. Additionally, it will take around 50 days for him to reach the destination from the base. Mark begins making adjustments to the rover to extend its travel range without needing to return to the base for recharging. He successfully doubles the battery life, but this achievement requires the protagonist faces a critical situation in which he must deactivate the heating system in the rover due to extreme cold conditions that threaten his survival during the journey. To counter this, he opts to procure radioactive material to generate heat within the vehicle. Meanwhile, NASA conducted a press conference to inform the public that they have identified the protagonist's objective of rendezvousing with the upcoming Mars mission through satellite tracking. Consequently, they expedite the mission's timeline to reach him within 9 months instead of the originally projected 4 years. In an effort to ensure the protagonist's safety, NASA refrains from disclosing his survival to his crew, as they are en route back to Earth. The protagonist harvests 400 potatoes from his garden, replanting the smaller ones and reserving the larger ones for sustenance. He locates the Pathfinder, a lost rover on Mars, and establishes communication with NASA using a replica on Earth. Despite limited functionality, NASA assists the protagonist in setting up a communication system via hexadecimal code to facilitate detailed inquiries. Subsequently, NASA guides the protagonist in hacking into the rover to establish direct communication. Upon learning of the rescue plan, the protagonist expresses relief. However, he is dismayed to discover that his crew remains unaware of his survival, prompting NASA to disclose the truth to them. The crew receives communication from NASA confirming the protagonist's survival and the rescue mission. Calculating his remaining food supplies, including harvested potatoes and base provisions, the protagonist determines that he has sufficient resources until NASA dispatches a rescue mission. Unfortunately, an unexpected explosion in the entrance chamber injures the protagonist, resulting in a cracked helmet that he hastily repairs with duct tape to restore the oxygen supply. He goes back to his garden to find that the exposure to the Mars atmosphere killed all of his plants and destroyed the system he had set up for keeping them watered. Mark tells NASA about the accident, and they realize that if they don't speed up the timeline for getting to Mark, he won't have enough food to last him until they get there. Mark's old crew is granted permission from NASA to contact him, and they catch up with each other. Mark cleans up the area of the base he had reserved for growing his potatoes, removing all the tarp and dirt and resealing the hole where the hatch had been. NASA decides to skip inspections on the ship they plan to use to rescue Mark, reasoning that there probably isn't anything wrong with it and the inspection would take up an unnecessary amount of time. On launch, the ship explodes, and all of their hard work goes up in flames. China's Space Division watches the newscast about NASA's failed launch and offers its aid with the help of a physicist. NASA is able to come up with a better plan to rescue Mark in less time. The Hermes, the ship that Mark's crew is on, will swing back into Earth's orbit long enough to send a fresh supply of food, then shoot back into space to pick up Mark without landing. The only problem with the plan is that it will add 500 days to the Hermes travel NASA. NASA's director vetoes the plan, explaining that he doesn't want to risk the lives of everyone on board the Hermes to save Mark. Another NASA coordinator thinks this is unfair and sends the plan details to Hermes in secret. Mark's crew discusses the plan amongst themselves, realizing that if they follow through with it, they will be committing mutiny. They discuss whether or not they want to spend another 500 days in space away from their families, but ultimately decide it's the right thing to do. They take a unanimous vote to go back for Mark. Each of the crew members contacts their families to let them know they will be gone longer than they had originally planned. NASA is notified that the Hermes has gone off its planned course, and the director scolds the coordinator for secretly sending out the plans to the crew. In order for the plan to work, Mark has to figure out how to gather all the equipment keeping him alive, the machines providing him with heat and oxygen, and get them to the ship in time to meet up with the Hermes as they pass Mars. The Hermes swings by Earth, picks up supplies, and uses the gravitational pull of Earth's atmosphere as momentum to launch them back towards Mars without using as much fuel. After 7 months, Mark begins preparing to meet the Hermes. He gathers all his supplies and packs them into the rover. He takes the solar panels with him so he can recharge the rover occasionally without having to come back to the base. NASA reasons that Mark's ship will have to be going really fast to meet up with the Hermes, so they instruct Mark to remove all the equipment that is now unnecessary. He takes out all the supplies meant for a 6-person crew and leaves only enough for the 1-person trip. He is also instructed to take off the front and sides of the ship and replace them with a tarp to reduce the weight and remove all the control panels. Since Hermes will be operating his ship remotely, Mark leaves the rover for the last time and enters the ship to get ready. He shaves off the beard he's grown, puts on new clothes and a spacesuit, and awaits instructions from his crew. They reassure him and warn him that he might pass out because of the force of the launch. Mark's ship takes off, and the tarps get sucked into space almost immediately. Mark passes out and is unable to communicate with his crew to let them know that he is okay. Mark wakes up, and his crew informs him that they won't be able to get their ship close enough to Mark. The commander instructs one of the crew members to construct an explosive and rig it to the back of the ship to slow them down so they have a better chance of reaching Mark. They set off the bomb and are inside Mark's ship, but not close enough to reach him. The commander puts on a spacesuit, straps herself into a chair on the outside of the ship, tethers it with a length of rope, and makes her way towards Mark. Unfortunately, the cable isn't long enough, so Mark cuts a hole in his suit and uses the air pressure to guide him to the commander. She catches him, reels him in, and they go back inside to reunite with the rest of the crew. They let NASA know they have Mark and are on their way home. Back on Earth, several years later, Mark is teaching NASA initiates about safety and preparedness in space. In the end, the Ares 4 launches, and the crew members of the Hermes watch the launch on television with their loved ones. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.